there is nowhere you need to be right now. Whatever the day asked of you, it's done with asking. The hours have folded themselves away, gently, the way a tide pulls back from the shore without any fuss, without any announcement, just a slow and steady retreat into the dark. All of it, the lists, the thoughts, the small unfinished things, they can all wait somewhere quiet until morning. They don't need you tonight, so just breathe, slowly, in and out, and let whatever sounds are around you become a kind of quiet music, a backdrop that doesn't ask anything of you. Let your eyes close whenever they're ready. There's no hurry. There's truly nothing to hurry toward. Tonight, we are going to drift somewhere very far away, and at the same time, somewhere strangely peaceful, somewhere that makes the whole universe feel soft and still, as if the stars themselves have decided to slow down just a little. We are going to float gently above Mars, not in any hurried way, not with noise or fire or drama, nothing like that, just the way a thought drifts through a half-sleeping mind, slow, effortless, without edges. There is a vessel up there, a small one, quiet and warm, tracing its unhurried path around a red and ancient world. And the people inside it are not rushing anywhere. They have nowhere to rush. The planet below turns slowly beneath them, and the stars hold perfectly still all around. And everything is exactly as calm as you might imagine the edge of the solar system to be on a night when absolutely nothing is demanded of it. Let's go there now, softly, together. The vessel is called the Luma, and it is smaller than most people would expect from a distance. If you could somehow see it against the black, it would look like a warm ember floating in an enormous, very quiet darkness, its lights glowing a gentle amber and white, steady and unhurried, the way a lighthouse glows more for comfort than for urgency. There is a low, steady hum inside the Luma, not a loud hum, not the kind that bothers anyone, but the kind that fills silence in a pleasant way, the way a refrigerator hums in a sleeping house at 3 a.m. and somehow makes everything feel more settled, not less. The Luma has been in orbit for several months now. It moves in a long, slow loop around Mars, covering the same graceful arc, day after day, night after night. Though out here, those words mean something different. There is no sunrise the way you might picture one. There is only the gradual appearance of light along the curve of the planet below, or the long stretching shadow that sweeps across the rust-colored plains as the vessel moves into the planet's shade. It is its own kind of rhythm, slow and wide and ancient. Inside, the vessel is warm. There are soft panels of amber light along the ceilings of the corridors, always dimmed at this hour, always giving everything a kind of evening glow, the color of a candle seen through a fogged window. The walls are a pale, warm gray. The surfaces have been used enough by now to have small, comfortable signs of life. A mug sitting on a ledge, its handle pointing thoughtfully outward, a folded blanket draped over the back of a chair, a small laminated photograph tucked into the edge of a storage panel, curling slightly at one corner. The vessel breathes. That is the best way to describe it. The ventilation system moves air through the corridors at a rate so gentle it's barely noticeable, but you can feel it sometimes, as a faint, soft current. The way you feel the breath of a sleeping person beside you. Barely there, barely anything at all, but entirely reassuring. Ilara is awake. She has always been the one who stays up a little later than the others, not because she has more work to do or because sleep is difficult for her, but because she genuinely loves this hour. She is a soft-spoken woman with a habit of tucking her hair behind her ear before she looks at something she finds interesting. And right now, both hands are loosely wrapped around a warm cup, and she is standing at the observation window in the upper module, and her eyes are on Mars. The window curves slightly, built into the nose of the upper module like a wide, calm eye looking out and downward. Through it, the planet fills most of the view. It is an extraordinary thing to see, and also a deeply quiet thing. Not the sharp, vivid red of illustrations, not the dramatic crimson of science posters, but something more nuanced, more gentle. From up here, Mars is a muted, dusty rose. There are pale ochre plains that stretch for hundreds of miles without interruption. There are darker regions where ancient volcanic rock sits patient and unchanged beneath the thin atmosphere. There are shallow depressions that were once, a very long time ago, filled with something, water, perhaps, or something that behaved like water, and which now hold only shadow and the memory of their own depth. Ilara doesn't look at Mars like someone trying to extract information from it. She looks at it the way you might look at a painting you've loved for a long time, not searching for anything new, just resting with what is already there. She holds her cup a little tighter when a slow current of warm air passes from the vent above her, and she lets out a long, quiet breath, and she thinks, as she often does at this hour, that there is something genuinely comforting about how old this planet is. Billions of years, several billion years old, they say, shaped by forces so slow and so enormous that human time is simply not the right measuring stick for any of it. The volcanoes that built the Great Plains of the Northern Hemisphere were active so long ago that no creature with a heartbeat had yet drawn breath anywhere in the solar system. And yet, there it is, still, patient, present, not going anywhere. Something about that always makes her feel less anxious about her own smallness, not less important. Not that. Just more comfortable with the pace of things. She sips her tea. It is a simple blend, something herbal, faintly sweet, with a warmth that spreads gently from the throat downward, through the chest, through the arms, and into the hands. Tea in low gravity has its peculiarities, but the Luma has been running at a comfortable fraction of Earth normal for long enough that a cup of tea behaves more or less like a cup of tea, and for that, Ilara is quietly grateful every single evening. Below, on the surface, a dust storm is moving across the Hellas Basin, one of the large ancient impact regions in the southern hemisphere. From up here, it looks like nothing more than a soft bruise of haze drifting slowly across a plain the color of warm sand. There is no violence to it from this distance, no urgency. It is just weather, moving, the way weather always moves, without asking permission, without announcing its arrival. It will settle in a few days. The planet will look exactly the same afterward. It always does. Ilara watches it drift, and something in her shoulders settles. Further down the corridor, behind a closed door, Marin is asleep. Marin Solis sleeps deeply and without ceremony. She is one of those people who seems to have made a particular private peace with the act of sleeping, who can lie down at almost any hour and be gone within a few minutes, not in a restless way, but in a genuinely settled way, the way a stone settles on the bed of a slow river. When she is awake, she is thoughtful and precise. When she is asleep, she is simply completely absent in the best possible sense. Her breathing slow and even behind the door, her hands loosely open on the blanket, the way hands go when the body has finally decided it is done deciding things for the day. She made the small, offhand comment before she went to bed tonight that the dust storm looked rather sleepy, which made Alara smile, and that small moment of warmth is still with Alara now, faint and pleasant. The way a light in a neighbor's window is pleasant when you see it late at night from a dark street. The corridor that runs from the observation module down to the lower habitat ring is lit only by the low amber panels, and it feels, at this hour, almost like a hallway in an old, beloved house, narrow, warm, slightly hushed. The handles on the storage compartments along the walls have been gripped so many times that the paint at their centers has worn to a soft, smooth shine, and if you ran your finger along one of them, it would feel like touching something that has been patiently held by human hands for a long time, and there is a particular comfort in that kind of worn-down evidence of daily life. Partway down the corridor, through a door that is always slightly open, the greenhouse begins. It is not a large space. It was never meant to be. But Desmond has done something remarkable with it, in his quiet, patient way, and stepping into it, even just standing at the threshold and looking, always produces a certain softening effect. The way stepping into a garden on a still afternoon in early summer produces something in the body that is difficult to name, but immediately recognizable. Desmond Ray is 61 years old, and he has been tending plants since he was a child, helping his grandmother water the small terrace garden she kept behind her house. 3 cracked pots and a window box, and an absolute insistence that everything could grow if you gave it enough patience. He carries that inheritance with him wherever he goes, very quietly, the way people carry the things that have genuinely shaped them, not displaying it, just living through it. Inside the greenhouse now, the air is different, a fraction warmer, a different quality of stillness. There is a faint, green, living smell, not sharp, not medicinal, just the low, clean scent of plants breathing in the dark. Rows of small lights, pale and cool, run above the growing trays, providing a soft, steady illumination that makes everything inside look very gentle. The leaves of the small plants, herbs and lettuces, and a few small flowering things that serve no practical purpose, except that Desmond has always believed that flowers have a practical purpose, even when you can't articulate it. Catch the light in the particular way that leaves dew, slightly waxy, slightly translucent, each one holding its shape perfectly still. Desmond is there now, at the far end of the greenhouse, doing something very slow with a small spray bottle. He is not in a hurry. He never is in here. He moves along the rows with the same quiet, deliberate patience his grandmother taught him, not inspecting too critically, not worrying, just looking with kind attention at each small tray, noting what he notes, making the small adjustments that the plants ask for in their wordless, steady way. He pauses at a tray of basil near the center of the room. He tips his head slightly to one side. One of the plants is leaning very gently toward the light, the way plants do when they have decided that the light is the right direction to grow toward. It's an entirely ordinary thing, and yet Desmond looks at it the way a person looks at something that has just done something quietly wonderful. He sets the spray bottle down on the edge of the tray, takes the pot carefully in both hands, and rotates it one slow quarter turn, so that the plant will lean back toward the center over the next several days, balanced. Then he picks up the spray bottle again and continues. There is a small folding stool at the end of the room that Desmond sometimes sits on in the evenings when there is nothing particular to do. But he finds he doesn't want to leave yet. It is not especially comfortable. It was never designed for lingering, but he has sat on it enough times now that it has become associated in his body with a particular kind of peacefulness. The kind you feel when you're somewhere that is genuinely growing, where things are quietly alive and getting on with the business of being alive without requiring anything in particular from you. He sits down on it now and leans his forearms on his knees and listens. The hum of the vessel, the faint tick and settle of the growing trays as the temperature in the room adjusts by small fractions. Somewhere in the distance, barely audible, the sound of Alara moving in the observation module, just the softest shift of weight, the kind of sound that only registers when everything else is already so quiet that the background silence has a texture. Desmond is not a man who fills silence with words. He never has been. His wife used to say, with real affection, that she could spend an entire evening in the same room as him and feel more accompanied than if she'd been surrounded by the most talkative people in the world. And he always thought that was one of the kindest things anyone had ever said to him. He carries that too, that memory, in his quiet way. He thinks about her, briefly, warmly, the way you can think about the people you love when you're somewhere deeply peaceful and the love doesn't hurt. It just sits there, full and still, like water in a basin that isn't moving. Then he looks at the basil plant he just turned, and he can already see, or imagines he can, the almost imperceptible way it might begin to correct its lean over the coming days, and that small anticipation is enough. Up in the observation module, Alara has moved from standing to sitting. She settled herself sideways in the wide, padded seat that runs along the lower edge of the observation window, her legs drawn up slightly, her back against the curved wall, and her cup still warm in both hands. The window beside her frames Mars below, the dust storm, a faint, hazy smear now moving very slowly across the lower left of the view, the rest of the planet calm and golden rose and ancient. There is a particular quality to the darkness between the stars out here that is different from the darkness you see from Earth. From Earth, the sky between the stars has a kind of ambient softness. Light pollution, atmospheric scatter, the faint reflected glow of cities and coastlines. Out here, the darkness is genuine. It has depth to it. It is the actual dark of space, which is not quite the same as any dark you find in the world below. Not the dark of a room with curtains drawn, or the dark of a night with cloud cover, or even the dark of a remote field, far from any town. This is the dark that exists between things, between everything. It has its own kind of weight, its own particular silence. But rather than feeling lonely, Alara has always found it the most restful thing she has ever looked at. There is nothing in it that asks her to do anything. The dark between the stars simply is. It has been there, exactly like that, for a length of time that she cannot truly comprehend, but that she trusts, the way you trust the floor of an old house. You don't need to understand how it was made to know it will hold you. She rests her head against the wall. The glass of the observation window is cool, and she doesn't touch it, but she can feel the temperature of it from a few inches away. A gentle coolness that sits at the edge of her perception without demanding anything. The hull of the vessel beyond the window is doing exactly what it was built to do, holding, protecting, keeping everything warm and breathable and safe inside its careful engineered shell. There is something deeply settling about a structure that holds. She thinks about this, softly, for a moment. How much of the comfort of being in any space comes from the walls around you, from the roof over you, from the sense that something between you and the larger, wilder world has been arranged in a way that says, you are inside, you are contained, you are held, a house wall, a blanket, a shore, a vessel, and this vessel, the Luma, is very good at holding. The amber light from the corridor panel beside the door has dimmed another shade since she sat down, on its gradual nightly cycle. It always does this, slowly, over the course of several hours, tracking toward the dimmest setting, signaling to the body that the night is deepening, that there is less and less need to stay alert, that things are winding down. Alara appreciates the gentleness of that design. Whoever decided to program the lights to dim, gradually rather than all at once, understood something real about how human beings ease into rest. She doesn't check the time. She stopped doing that some months ago. Stopped glancing at the small display on the wall beside the door. Stopped counting hours. It doesn't seem to matter up here, in quite the same way. The body has its own ideas about when it's tired, and those ideas are almost always right if you listen to them. And she has been listening to hers quite carefully tonight, and what they are saying, very quietly, is nearly now. The dust storm below has moved out of the visible frame of the window. The planet is still. A long, curved plane of pale ochre sweeps across the lower third of the view, and above it the atmosphere begins, that thin, delicate line of pale blue-violet that you can just barely see at the very edge of the planet's silhouette if the angle is right. It is barely anything, 86 miles deep. Give or take, they say. Fragile in comparison to the planet itself. Fragile in comparison to Earth's atmosphere. And yet, there it is, persisting, a thin veil of gas and dust that the planet has held loosely around itself for billions of years. Not enough to do everything that a thicker atmosphere might do, but enough to make the sunsets there, on the surface, a soft, dusty blue, the opposite of everything you'd expect from a red planet. The sunsets on Mars are blue. That has always moved something in Alara, some small, quiet part of her that believes the universe has a sense of the unexpected, a gentle one. She lets her eyes go soft, not closing, not quite yet, just soft. The kind of soft where the details of what you're looking at become impressions rather than facts. The planet below becomes a warm shape, glowing faintly in the dark. The stars beyond become a scattered, still field of light that isn't asking anything, isn't going anywhere. You can rest here. There's nothing that needs to be done. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. Down in the greenhouse, Desmond has started to prepare himself for sleep in the thoughtful, unhurried way that he does everything. He has set the spray bottle on its hook. He has made a small note in the soft, worn notebook he keeps on the shelf beside the door. Not much, just a line or two. The date. A brief observation about the basil and one of the lettuce varieties that seems to be coming along particularly well after some adjustments to the light schedule he made last week. His handwriting is small and even and completely legible. The handwriting of someone who has always understood that the future version of themselves who reads these words will be grateful for clarity. He closes the notebook. He clicks off the hood lights over the growing trays. All except one. A single soft panel, left on low at the far end, which he always leaves running at night, the way some people leave a small light on in a hallway, just in case. He gives one last look at the room from the threshold. The plants are still. The air is still. The faint hum of the ventilation moves warmly through the small space, and the last low light falls across the trays in a way that makes everything look, there is no other word, tended, cared for. The room looks like what it is, a place where something living is being gently looked after. Desmond switches off the overhead and pulls the door to its almost closed position. The corridor receives him back with its amber warmth. He moves slowly down toward the habitat ring, his hand trailing lightly along the wall, not for balance, but for the quiet pleasure of feeling the surface, smooth, slightly warm from the conduit running beneath it. Familiar in the particular way that things become familiar after months of passing them every day. At the bend in the corridor, there is a small observation porthole, round, not much wider than a dinner plate, and he pauses beside it the way he always does. Through it, the stars, not Mars. At this point in the orbit, the porthole faces out into open space, away from the planet, out toward the longer dark. The stars there are completely motionless. Not a single one is moving. They hold themselves with the absolute stillness of things that are genuinely very, very far away. Each one a point of light so steady, it seems not like a living fire at all, but like something carefully placed, like a pin pressed gently into a very dark cloth, letting a small, clean light show through from whatever is beyond it. Desmond presses his palm lightly against the wall beside the porthole. He is not entirely sure why he does this. He just finds it settling, the small act of contact, the reminder that the wall is there, that the vessel is there, solid and warm, between his hand and everything outside. He stands there for the length of a few breaths, counting nothing, expecting nothing, just being present at this small, round window at the bend in the amber corridor, while the stars hold their positions in the deep. Then he pushes himself gently off the wall and continues toward his bunk. The habitat ring is the quietest part of the Luma at this hour. 3 small cabins, each behind its own door. Marin's door is fully closed. Desmond's door is second from the end. His cabin is tidy, not obsessively tidy, just naturally, calmly tidy, in the way of someone whose inner life is organized enough that their outer life tends to follow. His bunk is narrow and warm. There's a small reading light clipped to the shelf above it, which he uses less and less as the months go on. He doesn't need to read himself to sleep the way he thought he might out here. The place does it for him. He sits on the edge of the bunk and removes his shoes in the slow, ordinary way that people do at the end of a long and peaceful day. He sets them side by side on the small rack at the foot of the cabin. He unfolds the blanket, a proper thick blanket, one he brought from home, a dark blue one that smells faintly of something that used to be familiar and is slowly becoming its own thing. And he lies down and pulls it up, and his eyes are already heavy. The last thing he sees before he lets his eyes close is the ceiling of his small cabin, pale and smooth, with the faintest amber tint from the corridor panel seeping under the door. It is a very unremarkable ceiling. He has looked at it enough times now that it is entirely his, in the way that any ceiling becomes yours when you've stared up at it in the dark enough times to have mapped its every slight imperfection. There is a small, faint scuff near the corner above the shelf that he has been meaning to report for weeks and never does, because honestly, it seems fine. It really seems fine. He lets the thought dissolve. The blanket is warm. The hum is steady. The ceiling is his. He lets go. Up in the observation module, the planet still turns. Alara has shifted slightly in her seat, curled a little closer to herself, her cup set aside now on the small tray to her right, still just barely warm. The view through the window has changed imperceptibly as the Luma continues its orbit. The great volcanic plateau of Tharsis is just beginning to appear at the far edge of the planet's disk. 3 enormous ancient volcanoes that from this distance look like nothing more than faint, smooth swells on the surface, barely shadows, barely there. They are, by some measures, the largest volcanoes in the known solar system, and from up here, they are almost invisible. The scale of things, Alara thinks, is remarkable and restful in equal measure. She is beginning to feel the first real drift of the evening. It comes gently, the way it always does for her. Not a sudden heaviness, not a crash, but a gradual blurring at the edges of thought. The way a watercolor painting goes soft, where the wet paper meets the painted edge. The thoughts are still there, but they have stopped being sharp. They have stopped requiring things from her. There is a particularly bright star in the lower left corner of the observation window tonight. It has been there every night for the last several weeks of this part of the orbit, and she has looked at it enough times that she thinks of it with a kind of small, private affection, the way you feel toward a lamppost in a familiar neighborhood that is always lit when you walk past it. She doesn't know which star it is. She could look it up. She has the charts, the references, the quiet data of 1,000 cataloged lights. But she finds she prefers not to know. She finds she prefers it to remain simply a bright, steady companion in the corner of her window, unnamed and constant. There is something true in that, she thinks vaguely. How some things are better left soft. Her breathing has slowed. She can feel it slowing, the way you feel the tide change. not all at once, just a gradual shift in the rhythm. Each breath a little deeper, a little longer, a little more willing to wait before the next one. Her shoulders are low. Her hands are loose on her lap. The window is beside her, and beyond it, the world that is not a world anymore in the way that felt urgent. And beyond that, the stars, and beyond the stars, the unimaginable distances that are, somehow, tonight, not frightening at all. They are just there, wide and still and patient. The way everything is, really, when you strip away the noise and let it settle. And everything is settling now. The Luma hums. The lights in the corridor have reached their lowest setting. Just the faintest amber thread along the edge of each panel. Barely more than a suggestion of light. A reassurance that the dark is chosen and not imposed. The greenhouse is breathing slowly behind its door. Desmond is asleep, already deeply asleep, his breathing long and low, his hands open on the blanket he brought from home. Maren has been asleep for some time now, her door still, the corridor outside her cabin perfectly quiet. Everything is at rest. The planet below continues its slow, indifferent turning. The dust storm has moved far across the southern hemisphere by now, trailing its hazy edge across plains that have not changed in 10 million years. The thin line of atmosphere at the horizon glows very faintly in the oblique sunlight from the side, a thread of pale blue gold, barely visible, the quiet breath of a world that is not awake and not asleep, just present, just there, just turning. Alara's eyes are very nearly closed. She is not trying to sleep. She has stopped trying, as she always does at this point in the evening. There is nothing to try. There is nowhere to be. The observation window holds its view and asks nothing of her. The warmth of the vessel holds her gently. The hum is a kind of lullaby, not composed, not intentional, just the honest sound of a machine doing its work quietly through the night, keeping everything safe and warm and moving in the right direction. She has a thought, barely a thought, more like the shadow of one, about the light that is traveling right now from that unnamed bright star in the corner of her window, how old it is, how it has been traveling in a straight line through empty space for longer than she can honestly hold in her mind, and how it has arrived tonight at the Luma's observation window and fallen at this exact moment on the edge of her sleeve. That is a remarkable thing. That old light arriving. She lets the thought go. There is nothing more it needs to be. It arrived. That is enough. The planet turns. The stars hold. The corridor glows amber at its very dimmest now, warm as the memory of a candle, warm as the inside of a closed hand. The vessel moves in its long, slow oval loop, tracing its path across the face of a world 400 million miles or so from the one you know. And the people inside it are at rest. And the growing things in the greenhouse are at rest. And everything is quietly doing what it does. Outside, the dark between the stars is absolute and wide and entirely patient. And the Luma is a small, warm point of amber light in the middle of it. And that is just exactly enough. You can let everything go now, fully. The thoughts that have been coming and going. You don't need to hold on to them. They will find their own way. the things that felt important earlier today, the ones that still have a little weight to them even now. They will still be there in the morning, and they will be easier then, after you have rested. They are not asking anything of you tonight. The vessel is warm. The planet is still. The stars are holding. There is nothing more to do. Ilara's eyes have closed. She doesn't know exactly when it happened, and it doesn't matter. The seat is wide enough to be comfortable, and her head has found the curved wall at just the right angle. And her breathing is very slow now. And somewhere beneath all the thoughts and the questions and the small accumulated weight of the day, there is just warmth and the hum and the faint red glow of a planet that has been patient for billions of years and has no objection to waiting a little longer while she sleeps. Somewhere above Mars, the Luma glows amber in the dark, and inside it, 3 people are asleep. The plants are breathing. The blankets are warm. The stars outside are so still they might as well be painted, each one a steady, silent pinprick in a cloth of absolute quiet. If you're still awake and listening, thank you for spending this quiet time with me. If you'd like more stories like this one, you can leave a soft like, subscribe to the channel, and whisper a word in the comments so I know what kind of story you'd like next. Sleep well. you.